Hi there, welcome back to another quick and easy watercolor painting. Today we're going to do a little bit of line and wash, and this is a piece of landscape that I see quite often. It's sort of between my home and Peterborough, Ontario, which is some place that I travel to quite often. And yeah, this is really a nice little piece of farmland. And I'm going to double up all these lines. So you'll see I quite often, I'll make the line sort of like just doubling it up a little bit. Gives it some depth, makes it look a little bit more natural, like a more natural part of the landscape. It also gives us some indication that there's a tree line there. Okay. And actually on this hill right here are some fairly large trees. And I'm just going to again double up the lines on these. This one here is quite a big tree too. And I'm just going to put some lines coming down for the trunks, like that. There's also a couple of smaller trees down here. I'm going to put those in too, and they're sort of one behind the other. And again, we'll just make some small lines coming all the way down to the land. And that's all we're going to do. I'm using a Sharpie pen. Sharpie pen won't bleed once the water from the watercolor touches it. So it's very water fast, okay? So we're going to start off here with the sky today, and we're going to take some, clean our brush off, and we're just going to grab some blue paint. We're going to make this sort of not very intense, but you know, we're going to make it blue. So this is wet paint on dry paper. So this would be considered wet on dry. And we're going to go around these trees like that. And we're also going to go right up to the tree and under the tree, just like that. You can see I'm using a pretty big brush. You don't have to use a big brush like this. Actually, I won't be able to use a big brush for the whole thing, so maybe I'm lying. The corner of the square brush sometimes allows us to work in a little bit more detail. And you can see how that's kind of cool, how that's all started to separate across there. I'm not going to fool around too much with that. I am going to grab a tissue though, just a regular tissue, and I'm going to make some clouds. Just like that. And we're just going to leave it. I'm not going to do any more to that, just leave it right alone. Again, I'm going to grab my half-inch watercolor brush, half-inch flat watercolor brush, I should say. This is all green across here. It's actually, you know, because it's springtime, it's actually many versions of green. So I'll put that across like that. I'm gonna add a little bit more pigment to it, make it a little bit more intense. And just give it, you know, some streaks like that. It's perfectly fine. I'm going to take some yellow here. I took a bunch of yellow. We're going to make this all yellow from here all the way along there. Remember, this is your painting. I mean, you don't have to do it I'm making this yellow. You can make it into whatever color it is that you want to make it into. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to take some of this green, pick up a little bit more of that green, and I'm just going to introduce it into a few areas like that, and we're just going to let that bleed together. Whatever it ends up being is what it ends up being, okay? I also have a couple of fields here that are still kind of muddy kind of fields. And I'm going to take my yellow ochre, and I'm just going to do that across there. This field right here is also that yellow ochre, and I'm going to put that in here. And you can see I just move my brush across really quickly. If those blend together, if those mix together, that's perfectly fine. This up across here is also, it's a very, very light green, quite a bit lighter than we had here before. So I'm going to put some green in here, and I'm going to let this come back across here like that. And then I'm going to pick up some yellow. I'm going to mix some yellow. So I'm going to put some yellow in some water. And we're just going to let that bleed together. Don't touch it anymore. Don't go in and try to fix it. You know, I say that, and then I think to myself, I really need some yellow across there. But in general, don't try to, you know, don't go in and start messing around with it too much. All right, let's walk away. Just walk away, Rod. Okay, there's some areas here where all the colors have, you know, blended together, and, you know, very, very interesting. I'll try to zoom in on that so you can have a look at that. But we're going to do these trees now. So I'm actually going to use a pretty small brush. I'm going to use a #1 round watercolor brush. And I'm going to paint these 4 trees right here. I'm going to paint these blue. We're going to use some fairly intense blue on these, but not, you know, we're going to make a pretty good puddle on each one of them. That's how I think of it. And then I'm going to take my yellow. I'm going to take yellow on my small brush, and I'm going to put yellow into those areas that are still white. Okay, just like that. All right, and we're going to let that all dry, but before we do, we're going to go to these 3 trees. And these 3 trees, we're going to put some yellow into those 3 trees. And then we're going to pick up our green, and we're going to put green into each one of those. Get that a little bit wetter up there. And then we're just going to let this dry. All right, we'll let this dry, and we'll come right back. Actually, I'm going to do a couple of more things here. I'm going to actually put a little bit of green in there, and a little bit of green right there, and maybe even take a little bit of blue into those just to create some darker areas along there. Yeah, that's turned out all right. Okay, that's not too bad at all. I'm going to put a little bit of blue in across here, which will inevitably become much greener. All right, let's let this dry and come back and have a look. Okay, so I took my hairdryer to that, and I got my little mat here. Let's put the mat on here and see what we get. And that turned out all right. Yeah, I'm kind of happy with that. All right, if you're currently a subscriber, thanks a lot. Only about 88 to 10% of my my people who view me are subscribers. So if you could subscribe, I would really appreciate it. If you have a question or a comment, leave it in the comment section. I'd love to know where everybody's from. So if you could drop me a comment and tell me where you're from, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope all your paintings turn out. And we'll see you again next time. Give this a try.